Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Game Show, where we have construction industry leaders from across the country compete to share the most significant and impactful insights. Mr. Mark Scherer, Mr. Bobby Krueger, Mr. Tim Rethlake, welcome to the game show.
Bradley, great to be here, Bob.
Indeed it is. Mr. Tim Rethlake, we're going to start with you. We're going to go down the line, briefly explain to our audience who you are and how you deliver value to the construction industry.
Yeah, thanks, Bradley. I'm Tim Rethlake with Traction Coaching, world headquarters in the bold north, St. Paul, Minnesota. And I add value to this industry by helping my clients live intentionally based on what's important to them, not just urgent, stepping out of the whirlwind a little bit.
I'm going to give you 1 point. Would you guys like to hear how we award points in this game show?
Yes, Richard.
Honestly, we just kind of make it up as it goes along, depending on how much I'm interested in what you share in the entertainment value and insights. I will award you points. Did you say the bold north?
That's exactly what I said.
1 point seems right. I can't delete points with this button, but we'll give you 1 point. Mr. Bobby Krueger, how do you deliver value to the construction industry?
Bobby Krueger, partner president of the Krueger Group, founder and partner of Maverick Development. How do I add value to?
Yeah, that's right.
I add value by delivering first-class products in multiple cities that are intentional based on how people live and how people behave in today's environment.
So many questions, but I will award you 3 points for this. Mr. Mark Scherer, welcome to the
Gene.
show.
Good to be here.
Who are you, and how do you deliver value to the construction industry?
I am Mark Scherer, president of Scherer Brothers Lumber Company. I add value, my company adds value, more importantly, by providing building products, services, solutions to upscale Twin Cities builders, remodelers in Minnesota. What I do is I generally stay out of people's way and give them the tools and resources they need to be successful.
You should stay out of the way. That sounds right. All right, Mark, let's start with you. If you could select one movie that most resonates with you because of its leadership, style, and substance, what movie would that be?
You know, a lot of thought goes into this, but I gotta say Godfather. And obviously it's a classic movie in and of its own right, but if you look a little bit deeper, just get into the structure, the organization, the whole thing behind the mafia and the five families and how he leads quietly, but he carries a big stick, as it were. Luca Brasi, Clemenza Tessio, all the capo regimes, solid leadership play.
Choosing The Godfather, if you had to select one movie, Godfather, Godfather 2.
Absolutely, from a leadership perspective,
Yes.
Godfather 1. And Godfather 3 should be burned. It's
Yes,
a waste of celluloid.
We pretend that didn't exist.
Absolutely.
So, all right, we got The Godfather from Mr. Mark Scherer. It's not bad. Mr. Bobby Krueger,
1 point?
That's right.
You gave me 1 point.
Yeah, if you continue to interrupt me, I'm gonna delete points. Can we delete points?
Yes.
Oh, all right, let's delete 1 point from Mark. Thank you. Mr. Bobby Krueger,
Yes.
favorite leadership movie, what is it, and defend your position.
Top Gun Maverick, recently released. Pete Mitchell is the character, also known as Maverick, called name Maverick. The reason I chose this movie was...
Because you named your company
Yes.
Maverick?
Yes, because I named my company Maverick.
Very clever.
The reason I chose that movie is Pete Mitchell leads by example. So I think that's an important quality of any leadership to actually show how to get things done.
He also feels the need for speed.
He does feel a need for speed.
He does. Do you still feel that Pete Mitchell, call sign Maverick, was singularly responsible for the death of Goose? And why?
No, I do not. I do not. No, I think there was failures on many levels there, but I do not think he was singularly responsible for his death.
Because a big part of leadership is accountability.
It is accountability.
And taking
That's a good
ownership
point.
for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
For the challenging things that happen in life. Mr. Tim Rethlake, favorite leadership movie and why?
Brad, I know how you love to be called Brad, so Brad, I gotta go with Gandhi. In the starring role, not surprisingly, is Gandhi. And I'm going with him because he led...
Was it about Gandhi?
It was about Gandhi.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. He led 350 million Indians out of suppression by the British with no bloodshed. And to do that, he had to put a very strong vision, a very consistent vision, a very peaceful approach to resistance. I think it was a tour de force on Ben Kingsley's part in that movie.
We often find leaders struggle to really clarify the difference between a vision and a mission and maybe what we're trying to achieve in terms of objectives over a 3-year plan. Tim, you're in consulting. You help leaders think about these things. If there are audience members who are watching this and listening to us who may feel that on some level they also struggle to articulate a vision, is there a certain question or a way that you can help them think about that to make sure everyone on their team really understands where they're going?
I think it's important to get, and I took this assignment way too seriously. You can tell that by some of the other answers you've had previously. I think it's important that you understand the difference between values and principles. Hitler, for example, had values, but his values were not principle-based.
I didn't see Hitler coming. I'm going to award you no points. Please continue.
It's important that you go back and ground on just founding principles and make sure you're aligned there, and that was why Gandhi had so much power, because he went back to that principle of all humans have equal value.
Mark, to build upon that, as you think about your leadership style and the way that you lead your company and your team, are there any first principles that serve as the bedrock of your leadership style?
Well, I don't do it as peacefully as Gandhi did. As much as I try to be serene and thoughtful, contemplative in my approach. No. For me, I guess I like to be a problem giver rather than a problem solver. Within people's world, within their roles and responsibilities and skill sets, allowing them to address issues and problems leads to a stronger organization in my mind. So they're able to be empowered, they can make mistakes, and they make really good decisions. They really do. And the second you clod back in and you have to be the person that solves every problem, you really lose a strong team dynamic that would otherwise be the case.
Mark, well said. Let's transition to question number 2. We're going to start with you, Mr. Bobby Krueger. You can build out a leadership triumvirate from anyone in history, living or dead, yourself and 2 other individuals to help lead. What 2 people would you invite to join your leadership team?
Number 1 would be Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, and I think Sam's success is something I try to emulate, and that's always putting people, employees first. The second person would be Abraham Lincoln. And the reason I say Abraham Lincoln is because the amount of times he failed before he succeeded. So I think he was a model of perseverance, and I think that's important in any type of leadership role, is honoring your failures, but realize that it led you to the success that you are seeking.
So Sam Walton, we'll set aside some of the negative externalities that come up when Walmart rolls into town. I do appreciate the fact
I didn't get
he
points for
allows
Hitler,
anyone to park their RV in the parking lot. Off camera, we'll discuss more about your terrible selection.
Did I get a point for that, by the way?
You get no points. Actually, I'll give you a point. I'm glad you asked. Mr. Tim Rethlake, you can create a leadership team yourself and any 2 individuals from history. Who are they and why?
Bradley, I'm also going with Lincoln, but for different reasons than my esteemed colleague here.
That's original.
It's unoriginal. I award you no points. Please continue.
Lincoln had a wicked sense of humor. 2 examples. A reporter was trying to cause trouble for him, and he said, "Your Secretary of State Seward says you're a fool." Lincoln said, "He's usually right. I better look into it." Another time when he was running for Congress in Illinois, his opponent said, "I challenge you to a duel and you can pick the weapons." Lincoln said, "How about cow dung at 5 paces?" So humor is a very important trait on a leadership team, because when the things get kind of tough, you got to bring a little bit of levity. And I think with everything he was managing through with that Civil War, to keep his humor through that showed a lot of fortitude, I thought. My second person would be William Wallace, because you got to have somebody on the team that when the excrement hits the fan, people got to know that there's one crazy bastard on the team that will cut a head off and put it on a stake out at the gate. because he's kind of the peacekeeper when things go rough.
I can see there's a little differentiation in your leadership team. One guy, nice sense of humor. The other guy, willing to cut heads off and put them on stakes.
You need that yin and yang on a leadership team. You need a little of both.
Mr. Mark Scherer, you employ humor, at least.
Thank God I try. I fail a lot.
To what degree can you teach humor to be a leadership tactic, if at all?
You know, aside from encouraging people not to take themselves so seriously, I don't know if you can teach humor. Like it's probably more of a defense mechanism, being 5 of 7 children, having a little self-deprecation involved in pretty much everything we do. I do. You can't teach that. It's just that you are or you are not.
All right, let's continue. You're going to develop your executive leadership team. It's yourself and 2 other people. Anyone from history who would join you on this leadership triumvirate?
First and foremost, a little bit obscure Minnesota reference, but Kirby Puckett, number 34, center fielder for the world champion, 87 champion, 91 champion Minnesota Twins. He was, kind of back to, you got leaders by definition, and you got leaders by action. And Kirby was hey, get on my back, guys. We're gonna get this done. Robs a home run, game 6 at the bottom of the game, and then carries them through in 91 for the championship World Series again against Atlanta. Just a solid guy, great personality. Did have humor that he applied to his craft, but he worked his extremely large butt off on a regular basis.
Well said.
Mark Scherer, in addition to Kirby Puckett, who else would join your leadership committee?
You know, Steve, my other famous person has to be R-squared, Ronald Reagan. Here's a man that he had a vision, we had issues, he had a vision, he had a plan, he communicated it. The great communicator, by the way.
Mark, did you or did you not vote for Jesse Ventura as governor of the, I was going to say great state.
It is a great state.
It's pretty solid. I mean, it's not, I would say it's great.
It's becoming more and more mediocre as we go.
The mediocre state. Did you vote for Jesse Ventura?
If you knew me, you wouldn't have to ask that question. Of course I did not.
Tim, let's segue off that. Ronald Reagan, the great communicator. He was an actor. There's a thin line between having leaders portray and behave in a way that instills confidence, but sometimes they're just playing that role. If there are young leaders who are watching this and understand that part of being a leader is portraying that you are in a leadership role and you have confidence in that, how can you coach someone to do that better?
There's a lot about leading in a business that runs parallel to parenting, right? And one of the things to say about parenting is don't worry that your kids don't listen to you, but worry that they're always watching you. And so one thing that I tell new leaders for the first time, as I said, to keep this rule in mind: give credit, take the blame. Keep that first and foremost, you're going to be good at leadership.
You shared that with me several years ago. I believe then, and I believe now, and I say it often, you can do a lot of leadership coaching with those 4 words. Give credit, take blame, full stop. So, well said.
Full stop. But when you're taking blame repeatedly for a single member, that's when it's time to call in William Wallace.
This is true. Yes. Heads on stakes. Point for Tim. All right, Mr. Bobby Krueger, let's transition to the 3rd question, which is, if you had to identify one animal which best represents your leadership style, what would it be?
I would say a wolf. And the reason I say a wolf,
You gotta be kidding me.
it's multifaceted. Did someone else say
hell?
wolf before? Or am I
Was
stealing
that
your
yours?
thunder?
Did he take yours?
You had me at multifaceted wolf. Please continue.
Well, there's a saying that goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think about a wolf, and I think a wolf is part of a greater community, but he's always out front leading that community.
I believe in the Jungle Book, they also say the strength of the pack is the wolf. And I forget the rest. Mr. Mark Scherer, if you had to identify one animal which best represents, actually you're gonna go last. Mr. Tim Rethlake, if you had to identify one animal which best represents your leadership style, what would it be and why?
Bradley, I'm going to go with the chameleon. The reason for that is because they understand their surroundings and they adjust to their surroundings. And there's certain things you can't break yourself on, and nature's one of those things. So great leaders stay flexible, they adjust to what's going on around them.
I like that. Well said. All right, Mr. Mark Scherer.
Well, aside from the Timberwolf, which I was talking to Bobby about last night, being my animal at the bar, so he's lacking a little thought in that. You know, I think I'm going to go with a gorilla.
Tell me more.
Well, our body shapes are very similar, first and foremost. And I would assume that should anybody ever want to eat a 1,000-pound gorilla or me, it would be one bite at a time. So we've got that working for us. But you know, you look at the whole gorilla pod structure and how there's the silverback male. You know, everybody's within the gorilla community. Everybody has their role. They know what their role is, whether they're caretaking or foraging or protecting or doing their things, and it works. It's like a system that just continues on, and at some point in time, they let the silverback know, hey, you got to retire, and then a new one steps up, and they go on their way. I just think it's kind of, from a communal standpoint, it's kind of a great reflection of what you can do as a team.
Are you suggesting that in addition to killer whales, that pods are also made up of gorillas?
I believe so, yes.
Tim Rethlake, confirm or deny?
That's where the original term podcast came from.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. Bobby, let's wrap up this episode of the Construction Leadership Game Show. Your team is undoubtedly, along with millions and millions and millions of other people watching this right now, is there a leadership message that your team and the industry in general should listen to and heed more often, given what's happening in our industry now?
I think perseverance is an important thing. There's a saying that I often go to, and time kills deals. And I think now's the time, now's the moment to lead, to communicate, and to be part of something.
All right, Mr. Mark Scherer, is there a leadership message that your team and the industry in general needs to listen to more now, and what would that be?
Make decisions. Make decisions. When you make a good one, expand upon it. When you make a bad one, recognize it, acknowledge it, move on, go back, make another decision. I think we get too paralyzed looking at data, trying to figure stuff out. Why do you get 3?
Quiet. Tim Rethlake, bring us home. Final leadership message to our audience.
Brad, I think we got to keep in mind it's a long game, and what goes around comes around, and customers tend to have really long memories. So karma can be a bitch.
Gentlemen, Mr. Tim Rethlake, Mr. Bobby Krueger, Mark Scherer, thank you for joining the Construction Leadership Game Show. I do not know how this happened, because there was one thing that was going to be true at the end of this, that Mark Scherer would not win. However, Mr. Mark Scherer, somehow, incredibly, you have won this episode of the Construction Leadership Game Show.
Thanks, Richard.
And with that, we will close out this episode. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.